1920s
Yeah.
that visited Biddeford.
Yeah, but James Monroe was the first one, but George Thatcher was a very, very important person in Biddeford. He lived in Biddeford, he died in Biddeford, but he was also one of the founders of the Congressional Church, the Second Congressional to the White Church. He was one of the founders that had that built and all that.
Somebody told me that the Thatcher Hotel upstairs,
Yes.
the original ballroom is still intact.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Still
and
intact.
it's named after a very, very prominent person. I can't think of the name, but it's still there, and they still have the chandeliers in it. And
I think Charlie Butler's owner had told me that.
right, but the Thatcher Hotel was a very, very prominent place for back in the 17 and 1800 for people. They used to come. Lafayette came and visited the Thatcher Hotel.
You know, that's the thing about a lot of what's going on in the city here. When you drive around and look at all the street names, most people don't realize that a lot of the streets in Biddeford are named after people like, you know, the Emerys and Chevenels and Sullivans.
And Jeremiah Hill.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the important people in Biddeford are buried at Woodlawn Cemetery or Greenwood Cemetery or St. Joseph's, St. Mary's. A lot of them, you know, stayed here and lived here and passed away here and are still here, and they can be visited. And you take Frank Pearson there, Samuel Pearson. He was the same age as George Washington, born in the same day, same year, and he was George Washington's clerk of the works for the American Revolution. And when he got out of the American Revolution, you know, he lived in Biddeford, and he was also the first president of the Saco Biddeford Savings Bank. And people don't know that.
I did a project quite a few years ago, well, 3 or 4 years ago, and I had done research on Clifford Park, and I found that the Clifford family, they're buried at Laurel Hill.
Yeah.
It took me a while because I did go through a lot of the cemeteries around here, which I thought they might have been buried here.
Yeah.
But I wound up finding him in Laurel Hill Cemetery in the old section.
Yeah.
And it took me a while, but Ralph Courtois, who was a former member of the Biddeford Historical Society, told me about it, and he showed me right where they were.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
And that's another part of the history that, you know, that we should look at too, is the history of Clifford Park and the granite that was extracted from Clifford Park.
The quarries, yes.
Right. I mean, they say that we have some of the granite from Clifford Park is at George Washington's monument, the Brooklyn Bridge, Lincoln's tomb, I think, is, but there's granite, because the granite in Biddeford was very, very, very nice, and it was also easy to transport to the Saco River and transport out of the state.
How many people in the selection committee?
I believe there's 9.
7.
Oh, 7, I'm sorry.
There's 7 of you?
Right.
Yeah.
A couple of the other criteria is they're looking for testimonials. So not just the nominations, but if the more information that the committee can get, the better it is as far as making a selection, because there are so many good choices. And if there's if there's some kind of ethnic connection, like you look at Robert MacArthur, the library, he was Irish. He worked at the mills. The library burnt, he bought the old church.
Right.
And started the library there. I mean, there's a lot of people that did a lot of good things.
Look at the Albanians that are buried at Woodlawn Cemetery. You know, they're the ones that built the mills. They used to make the bricks, and then they worked in the foundries. And they came here from Albania, and then they worked here. And the ones that didn't make it back to Albania are buried at Woodlawn Cemetery. But there was quite a few families that, you know, from Albania that lived here and worked here.
My husband kind of made an analogy that made a lot of sense. Years ago, everybody came to the mills and all the immigrants came. Now that we have, is it Doug Sanford? Is redeveloping the mills. Since then, we're getting new immigrants, but the mills are being revived. So it's kind of like a now and then.
A reborn.
Yeah.
Rebirth,
Rebirth,
So
exactly.
we want to celebrate now too. You know, I mean, look at Engine. They've done so much with the arts in the heart of Biddeford. They've done a lot to help revitalize the downtown.
Dennis, you gonna?
No, I was just agreeing with what Diane was saying, because it is like a rebirth of the mills. You know, we're seeing something that kind of happened very similarly, 150 years ago, all over again. Just, it's a different, like a phoenix.
Yeah.
It's, it's amazing, how many people worked in the mills, how many people live in the city, My good friend Roger Painshaw, he always used to say when he was doing his interviews, he says, the city of Biddeford, the population never changed. It's always been in the 20, 21,000, and it hasn't changed, but we had numerous popular people come here into the city, like you were just saying, Dennis, about history, that we had a lot of historical people that came through here, and how our founding fathers, they're the ones, that founded the city, and look at City Hall. City Hall, the first City Hall burnt, then they
built it again.
rebuilt it, and all that type of nature, It's amazing what the Journal building, which is right in the square, that's an old building too. If you carefully walk through Biddeford, and I think you would say something like that, Dennis, if you walk through Biddeford and you observe the buildings, you look above, and some of them have the age, and you're going 1800, early 1900s, and and it's right in plaque right into the cement.
Right.
Huh?
Because in Biddeford, we had the Greeks, we had the French, we had the English, the Irish. They all came and all worked over here. And look at Chevenel. He walked from Canada, and then he walked back to tell people how nice it was, and they all came. And so we need something like that again.
What I'm finding is, as we spend more time on this, not here, but as far as the Cultural Heritage Center, is I've been doing research and looking at some of the nominees that have been submitted and looking for background.
We'll discuss the nominees in a minute.
Yeah, but I find one thing leads you to another.
Yeah.
Once you get into the history of one person, it opens up the doors to their family and what they did, and there's so much of that.
Yeah, a lot of people like to know what their grandparents did.
Yeah.
What did my grandfather do? What did my grandmother do? Like my parents, they met in the mills.
Oh, really?
My mother came from Canada. My father came from Lowell, Mass.
Huh.
And they met in the mills.
Yeah. That's a typical story.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of these people today. Look how many people from Canada worked in the mills. Yeah. And Emery Street used to be known as Little Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Hill Street. That's where the people lived. Years ago.
And then the churches got all together, like St. Andrews. The people that went to St. Andrews stayed at St. Andrews. The people that went to St. Joseph's stayed at St. Joseph's. The people that went to St. Mary stayed at St. Mary.
Yeah.
And, like I was talking to one priest, and he was a priest at St. Andrews, and he said he was forbidden to go to St. Joseph. You couldn't, that was not your territory. You stay.
Wow.
Yeah.
How can they get nomination forms for the Hall of Fame?
On the website. That's the easiest way. And the website address is?
That's the email.
Oh, that's email. You can send an email.
So the website address is up
there.
there.
Biddeford Cultural and Heritage Center.org.
Yeah.
Then you can go past and present.
Yes.
Present too.
Yes.
We also have a few forms at City Hall, at MacArthur Library, and at the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
So if they wanted to pick them up there, or probably could ask any of the committee or board members.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I'm with the Biddeford Historical Society, and they can, we have a website, and they can call me, and I can give them the information.
And, so they can fill in the forms and know what they would like to see, who would like to see for nomination.
And they have to submit the forms or the nominees by one way or another by the 20th. Not the 20th.
The 31st.
March 31st.
Yeah.
March 31st.
Yeah.
With testimonials.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How many people do you have so far that you would recommend? Or already been recommended?
If I would recommend, I would recommend Samuel Champlain, Richard Vines. One of them, he's never lived in Maine, but he was very instrumental, is Ferdinand Gorges. He's the one that financed. He financed everybody. He was in England, in Plymouth, England. He was the governor over there, and he was a friend of the Queen. But he's the one that financed every expedition to Maine. He financed Richard Vine. He financed the Plymouth colony. He financed the Popham. He financed that. But they say that he spent over $200,000 of his personal money to get ships and people to come to Maine. And the Queen it was Queen Elizabeth then. I don't know if it was the first and all that, but he was very close friends with her. And he was a sailor and a merchant. And she gave him the state of Maine. So that's why he was sending people. And one of the stories is that one of his predators, George Weymouth, he came to Maine looking for gold and all that, and he didn't find any. So he kidnapped 5 of the Indians, and then he brought them back to England. And it was Ferdinand Gorges that educated the 5 Indians. And he taught them English. He had them for 3 years. He sent them to school, and then he sent them back. He used to send them back with the ship so they could communicate with with the Indians and all that. And then there was one Squanto. He's the one that went to Plymouth Town, the Plymouth colony, and he was their communicator for the Indians, and he basically saved. But Ferdinand Gorges was the one that financed everybody, and then he educated these Indians, and he paid for everybody's trips over here.
Where will the induction take place?
It will be at the La Kermesse Festival, and that's one of the things that I know Joe Plamondon had talked about when he first started that festival. Was he was looking to include all the ethnic backgrounds in the city in this festival. And I know, for most of the time it's been around, it's kind of focused on the Franco-American thing, but starting this year, there's going to be 2 things we're going to do at the festival. One is the induction ceremony on Friday night. The recipients, if alive or if they have a designee or representative, will get a ride in the parade. We're going to have a vehicle set up just to put them in the parade. And Friday evening when they arrive at the festival, there'll be an induction ceremony on the stage in the main tent, where there'll be a presentation of a plaque at that time to each of the recipients of their designees. Also at the festival is going to be, I believe it's a 40 by 20 foot tent with a lot of the organizations in the city that are involved in the historical or the cultural heritage things that are in the city, so that they can each have an area where they'll make themselves available to talk to people who attend the festival.
Because we talk about different organizations, the organizations that we had years ago in 50s, 60s, 70s.
Oh yeah.
A lot of them are no longer here.
Yep.
Yep.
They're dwindling right down.
Yep.
You just recent last end of the year, Rochambeau closed. Before that was Voltigeur.
Yep.
I was past president of the Fremont Club, and I gave an interview to this young lady from Canada, and I told her exactly about the Fremont Club. And you had different French organizations. You had even the Lightning Club. Even though it was our generation. It was our generation. But yet, for organizations, the only one that's really surviving now is oh gosh, there's one I can't think of top of my head.
Saint-Jean-de-Baptiste.
Saint-Jean-Baptiste is
Yeah.
still around.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's another one, Richelieu.
Oh yeah, French.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to include different ethnic groups too, but I don't believe we have like a Greek organization in the city. There is in Saco.
Right, they moved to Saco.
Irish,
Yeah.
But yeah, and Dennis was saying about Rebecca Emery,
Daughters of the
Daughters
American
their
Oh, yes,
organizations in
they have.
Saco.
They
right?
have. Well, they're
I
throughout New England. The
Throughout
Daughters of
New
the American Revolution, and then the way that it was, Rebecca Emery, she married a lad. She was Rebecca Ladd also, and then she was up by the Crescent Street Church, and the reason that it's called the Rebecca Emery Daughters of the American Revolution is because when they formed, she had passed away, but she had a large family, and then 5 of the members, there was 5 women that joined the Daughters of the American Revolution, and they wanted to know what they were going to call themselves, since she was 5 siblings, so they named it Rebecca Emery. So Rebecca Emery was not a member, but her 5 children were the founders of the first chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and it was Biddeford. She was raised in Biddeford. She used to have an inn by City Hall.
Oh, she did?
Oh yes, she had an inn. And she was married twice, and the last one was Rebecca Ladd. But as for Emery, that she had 5 daughters.
Yes, and the same thing we're talking about City Hall, but if you look at the monument at City Hall,
Yes.
the Civil War monument, I looked at it carefully quite a few years ago, because I was thinking about doing a research on it, and there's a lot of history to that too.
Yes, there
A
is.
lot of our people that
Right.
were lived in Biddeford went to the Civil War. You know, it's and I bet you've seen that at Woodlawn or
Right, Woodlawn. We have a
Greenwood.
lot of buried at Woodlawn. But the thing is that the meeting house, you know, for the Civil War, they would come all from York County, and they would meet at the meeting house. And when they had a group of them, they transported them to wherever they needed them.
Wow.
But you know, they used to have posters that we need. You know, different towns. They used to have posters, you know, asking for volunteers. And they'd go to the meeting house, and then they'd stay there, and when they had a group, so Biddeford was the central point for all of that, where they all met here, and then they went wherever they needed them.
Wow. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Diane, you have to say?
You know, I was just thinking back about the nominations. I'm looking at it, you're looking at it from a historical point of view, and I'm thinking about different people we could nominate
Right.
now
Yes.
or not so long ago, and I'm thinking like Moses Weber,
Yeah.
you know, because look at what the hospital has done
Yep.
for this community.
And what it's
Or-
become.
Yeah.
So, you-
Or MacArthur, Robert MacArthur,
Yeah.
or even somebody that I actually nominated was a physician who'd been in the
Dr.
city for
Fortier.
years and years and years,
that
because he
Dr.
affected
Fortier?
so many people, so many lives.
I went
you know.
to Dr. Fortier.
Yeah, my Pepe did
Dr.
too.
Fortier, Dr. La Rochelle,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Hussein.
Yeah.
You know, they were the family dog, and they would make house calls.
Yes,
Yes, they
yeah.
were.
Bring your little
Yeah.
black bag.
And people
Yeah.
remember that, you
Yeah.
know, and everybody. I mean, they affected so many people.
A lot of people have made an impression on the citizens of Biddeford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got anything else to add? Do we forget anything? Or?
No, the only thing I would say is that if there are any people from other groups that we'd like to, you're more than welcome to come to our organization, contact us. There are a lot of young groups starting up, like Biddeford Rising, and some other groups. I know there's a community garden starting that we might be able to help with
Oh, is that right?
on Mission Hill. Yep.
Wow.
Mission Hill Community Garden. So, and the other thing is we need supporters, and we need supporters as far as people to help us so that we can continue to grow and
Yep.
get our organization going. And also if anybody wanted to help, you know, with donations, that's always accepted too. But as far as the Hall of Fame, which is why we're here, it's very important to get those nominations in.
By
you
the
know.
31st.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Even though it's a
any
few
tes-
days over, it doesn't really matter.
any testimonials, any information that they can give as to why. And, you know, I think after that, the committee is meeting this week, correct? Are you meeting this week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
And
we're
you're-
meeting tomorrow night.
And you're going to decide on, after the nominations are in, if they need additional information, you're probably going to reach out to the people after that, I think.
Yeah, we're having a meeting tomorrow at MacArthur Library, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Dennis, you anything to add?
No, I just feel privileged to be here and be part of this because it's pretty exciting,
It is
you know,
exciting.
right now to see that there's an avenue opening up for us to really explore our history here. You know, my dad worked in the mills for 25 years. My grandfather owned a restaurant on Main Street for years, and you know, I feel like I'm so much part of the community that all of this information I'm getting just makes me feel more a part of it
Yeah,
as
and
we go.
I think that's what we want to do. I mean, the mission is to celebrate, preserve, share, and teach. And we can do that with the Historical Society, Engines doing the cultural part with the arts. You've got the Biddeford, there is going to be a mill museum in the mill museum, the library, our group. If we can get the oral histories and the Hall of Fame, and we can all do our part to get things going now, we can all, it's only going to benefit all of us.
Which restaurant your father owned and me?
It was called Hervey's Lunch, and it was right at the corner of Elm Street and Main Street. It's actually where the gas station is now. That part of the building was torn down years ago, but he had Harvey's Lunch there, and my grandmother worked at what eventually became McKinney and Hurd, but there was a Morin's drugstore on Main Street that she worked at,
Yeah, I remember.
and they ended up getting hooked up. And
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
That's
it
a-
is very interesting when you start to
Well,
research this stuff
Al-
and find these things out.
Alan mentioned Urbain Ledoux,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I started looking at his history because he was a U.S. consul, the youngest U.S. consul at his age, consular, and he married a daughter of Pierre Péchaud.
Oh,
That was his wife, one of his daughters.
That's another thing too. Péchaud band. Look
Right.
how many years they've been around.
Yeah.
They were around.
Right.
yeah, he is in
Because
the-
they used to play right on the, well, they practiced on the corner of Bacon and Alfred Street in that big block, the Fireman's Hall,
Right.
they called it. And they were on the top floor, and every Sunday morning, because I lived in that vicinity when I grew up, and you could hear the music playing. They had the windows open in the summertime. You could hear them practicing. But their groups were huge, but then
Yeah.
over the years, they dwindled down.
My husband was part of that group.
Was he?
When we were dating, they had concerts in front of MacArthur Library,
Yeah.
Right.
and they used to go to Old Orchard too. Yeah, Freddie Cloutier was running it then.
Dennis, you got anything to add?
No, I think it's a good venture to be in.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think it's long overdue.
Yes,
That's what I think.
and
You
it
know?
shouldn't be
I
forgotten.
want to thank you people for doing this. I
Thank
really,
you for
really
doing
do.
this.
Right. Thank you for your
Really,
time.
it's
Yes.
you people that the backbone of this. You know, we're at our age. You know, we're the ones
Yeah.
we're the only ones who can really remember if we're fortunate enough
Yeah.
to. You know, but like I said, thank you very much for coming on the program. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you need to add?
No,
We
we're all
covered
set.
everything.
Yep.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Not
thank
a
you very
problem.
much.
And thank you both for coming.
Well, it was a good opportunity to get the information out to everybody. you
Yes,
know, it's-
yeah.
We don't have that many
Yeah.
good
I know.
ways to do
Well,
that.
maybe down the road we can do another one.
That'd be fun.
would be
You know,
great.
we'll do another one down the
Yeah.
road. You know.
See how things are progressing
Right.
with the organization.
I
and-
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it should be more, like I said, there's opportunity out there for this.
Like I say, there is so much out there that, we're just scratching the
Right.
surface
Yes.
right
You
now.
are, you are,
There's a lot of history out there.
there is. Well, thank you, all of you, for coming.
Thank
I'm your host, Roger Hirschby, for Biddeford Today. I hope you enjoyed our program. Until next time, thank you for watching.